What's up, guys? So a long time ago I did a video about fighting game terminology. I know there's kind of a lot of expressions and phrases out there that might be foreign, especially if Dragon Ball FighterZ is your first fighting game. So I did a video a while ago with 10 pieces of fighting game terminology. The link is right here. If you want to see that, make sure you watch that first. But today we're doing 10 more pieces of terminology that you should probably know if you want to play fighting games. So we're going to start things off with number one on the list. Let's jump right into it. So starting things off, we've got B&B. So B&B stands for bread and butter. So bread and butter is going to be your bread and butter combo, meaning the combo that you kind of just go to. Like whenever you get a hit, like this is going to be the combo that you pull out. You got to know it by heart. You got to be able to basically do it with your eyes closed. Just be ready to do it at a moment's notice. That's why it's called your bread and butter, because you're just doing it all the time. It's like the cornerstone of your gameplay, and you should really have one for each character on your team. So that's to start things out. Pretty simple. Make sure you have a bread and butter combo. It's an important thing for sort of any up-and-coming player. Next up, we're going to talk about whiffs. So a whiff is basically just any attack that misses. It just completely doesn't contact the opponent. It goes into thin air. That's a whiff. So something I experience a lot with Krillin is his down heavy really likes to whiff. It's got very short range. So that's a good example. Or another thing would be like a character might, whiff a command throw. That's pretty common. So he whiffed a throw. And then if I see that, I might punish him, and that's called a whiff punish. If you see a whiff, and then you react to it, and you hit the opponent, that's called a whiff punish. You can also fish for whiffs. Like a common way to do that is with like a backdash. So say after a blocked vanish, you backdash, and then he whiffs, and what do? You whiff punish him. So like if your opponent pulls out the auto combo and you see it whiff, go for that whiff punish. So that is our second term, is whiff. Next up, the third term I want to talk about is command throw. So in most fighting games, every character is going to have a normal throw that has like a universal command. In Dragon Ball FighterZ, it's light plus medium. It's also called Dragon Rush. So everyone has a normal throw, but some characters have what's called a command throw. And the reason it's called that is because you have to put in a command to get it. So like for Android 18, quarter circle forward and then any attack, and she does her command throw. So this is different from a normal throw. Everybody has a normal throw, but usually only some characters have a command throw. And it's just a type of special move that happens to throw the opponent. So in Dragon Ball FighterZ, there's quite a few characters that have this. Obviously Android 18, Android 16, Broly, stuff like that. Super Saiyan Blue, Goku. These are characters with command throws. Another important term here is command normals. So your normals are just like your normal attacks that you get by hitting buttons, meaning you hit a button without like a command or anything to do a special move. But there's also something called a command normal, which is a normal attack plus a specific direction that's different from your regular normal. So like Cell is an example. He's got his standing heavy attack, that's a normal, but he's also got his forward heavy attack, which does something different. That's a command normal. Forward heavy is one of his command normals. So you got command throws, you got command normals. Hopefully that makes sense, guys. Basically something to differentiate it from the normal universal things that every character has. So like every character has standing heavy, obviously, but not every character has this forward plus heavy. That's cell specific. It's a command normal. Next up, we're going to be talking about frame advantage. So to be at frame advantage means that your character can act before your opponent's character. And frame disadvantage means that your opponent's character can act before your character does. So another way that this is described is being plus or being minus. People might say, oh, I'm plus frames. Being plus frames means that you can attack before the opponent can attack. So a common example of this in fighters is after the opponent blocks a vanish on the ground, the person who did the vanish is at frame advantage. They're at plus frames. So you can see he's going to press light after he blocks the vanish, but my light is going to win because I have frame advantage. Meanwhile, most sort of special moves and stuff like that are going to be minus frames. So you can see he's able to punish me after he blocks the level 3 because I'm at minus frames. I'm so minus, in fact, that I'm unsafe on block. That's what unsafe on block means. If the opponent blocks it, they can punish you. There's a few other examples of things that are plus on block in this game. For example, like Yamcha standing heavy is plus on block. If the opponent blocks it and you both press light, Yamcha's gonna win. So there's a few things like this in the game, a few examples of things that are plus, and a lot of things that are minus, like most special moves are gonna be minus. So take note, plus and minus frames. I'm going to have a link in the description to a little bit more in-depth video that talks about frame data, but that's the gist of it. If you're at plus, you're at advantage. It's your turn to attack. If you're minus, you're at disadvantage, and it's your opponent's turn to attack. So next up, we're going to talk about ground tech and air tech. So these are kind of old terms. Back in the old days, when a character would recover off of the ground after being hit, that would be called a technical. So you can see how he kind of bounces there at the end. That's called a technical in the old terms. It's also called ground recovery or air recovery. So like you can see, I knock him down and then he bounces. That's a ground recovery. And so in the training mode settings, you can change which way they recover. You know, mid-air recovery forward. People might call that a forward tech, or they can go down. People might call that a down tech. So that's, if you hear those terms used, that's generally what people are meaning. And so there are certain moves in this game, level 3s give you what's called an untechable knockdown, meaning the opponent cannot tech off the ground off of a level 3. You can see he's just going to kind of stand straight up. So that's called an untechable knockdown, meaning you do not have the option to ground tech afterwards. So that's the basics of teching. I know tech is kind of like a weird term, but it's just something that people have been saying for many, many years, so the term has kind of stuck. But the official term in this game would be mid-air recovery and ground recovery. Next up, speaking of being on the ground, we're going to talk about OTG. OTG stands for off the ground or on the ground. It's kind of either way. Either way, you're hitting the opponent while they're on the ground, or you're hitting them off the ground, whatever you prefer to say. So in this game, pretty much all supers are going to OTG, meaning you knock the opponent down to the ground, and then you do the super, and it's going to hit him OTG. That's not necessarily the way it works in all other games. In a lot of games, you can OTG with normals, but in a lot of games, you can't OTG at all. Like Street Fighter is an example. With very, very few exceptions, you cannot OTG in Street Fighter. Characters are completely invincible when they're on the ground. But in Dragon Ball FighterZ, all supers OTG. So it's just a term you might hear, like, oh, I OTG'd him with my level 3 or whatever. Depending on the game, you might hear it more or less, but that's what OTG means, off the ground or on the ground, according to some people. So right after OTG, now we got OTK. This stands for one touch kill. This is also called the TOD, standing for touch of death. And what that means is basically just that you hit the opponent once, and that is going to kill them. You kill the opponent with just one combo. That's called a TOD or an OTK. They're pretty rare, especially in Dragon Ball FighterZ. There aren't that many that don't involve, sparking or something like that, or a lot of meters, but they are possible. You will occasionally see one, and when you do, you might hear people call it an OTK, a one-touch kill, or a TOD, which stands for a touch of death. So now you know what that means. Let's jump right into the next one and talk about frame traps. So frame traps are basically a situation where you're leaving a gap intentionally for your opponent to attack, and then if they do, then that means you can hit them. So this involves being plus frames most of the time. So an example might be like Yamcha. He can do his standing heavy into Wolf Fang Fist, but that is not a frame trap because there's no gap for the opponent to input that standing light in between these two hits. So that's not a frame trap, it's a block string. But if instead you do standing heavy into standing light, that's a frame trap. There's a gap there where the opponent can stick a button out, but if they do, they're going to get hit. So you're kind of baiting the opponent to press a button. You really want them to press a normal here, and if they do, they're going to get hit. So that's called a frame trap. You're setting the trap, and then if they press a button, you get a nice combo on them. So that's what a frame trap is. Most of the time, it's going to be a situation where you have the opponent at plus frames, you wait for them to stick out a button, and then you just hit them right out of it. So that's a frame trap, guys. The next term I want to talk about is anchor. So you might have heard people say like, oh, this character's a good anchor, this character's a bad anchor. I have Yamcha as my anchor. Basically, anchor refers to the third and last character on your team. So the third character is the anchor. Usually the first character is called the point character. And the middle character, they don't really have a name. People call him like the middle character or the second character. So the anchor is your third character. Usually that'll be your character with the best assist. Usually you want your best assist in the third slot so that your first and second characters can take advantage of it. It might also be the character that you're most likely to make comebacks with. You don't want to be totally screwed when your third character is the last one remaining. You want someone who's pretty good at making comebacks and getting you those wins. So the first character is the point. The middle character is just the middle character or the second character. The third character is your anchor, and they're usually a very important character on your team that kind of brings the whole team together. So don't neglect your choice for the anchor character, guys. So the last term I want to talk about, and this is a pretty fun one, it's OCV. So that stands for One Character Victory. So if you're just destroying the opponent, you get all the way through their team only using your first character with none of your characters dying. That's called an OCV. It's very hard to do because, you know, usually the opponent will at least be able to make a sparking comeback or something and kill one of your characters. But if you're really on a roll, if you're really carrying your momentum, you might just be able to pull off an OCV. And there's another version of it called the reverse OCV. And a reverse OCV is when you lose your first two characters really fast, but then you kill all three of your opponent's characters with your anchor character. So that's called a reverse OCV because basically instead of your first character doing everything, it's your last character. So as long as you're able to kill your opponent's entire team with just one character, that's an OCV, or a reverse OCV if you do it with your anchor. So hopefully you found some of these terms informative, guys. I know, like, these are questions I get a lot in my stream chat, are, you know, what does this term mean? I hear you use it a lot. What does it mean? So I'm hoping that this will clear some of this up. And once again, in case you missed my last fighting game terminology video, make sure you check that one out as well. It's got 10 more terms in it that I think are really important. The link's going to be right here on screen or down in the description. So thank you so much for watching, guys. Be sure to hit that sub button if you want to get more content from me. Be sure to check out my stream every single weekday on Twitch, 5 to 8 p.m. Eastern, twitch.tv/jmcrofts. So that's it, guys. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.